bloody plastic bumper. Welcome back to the channel, guys, and to the rear bar build. Since you probably last saw it, I've done a fair bit of work. A lot of it has been real small, finicky stuff, cutting pieces, test fitting them, running between the car and the workshop to test them, welding things up, all the boring stuff you don't like seeing. But anyway, this is where it's sitting at the moment. So this rear quarter panel is pretty much done. There'll be a few little changes I'll do before I actually fit it up. I started constructing the actual middle section of it. It's quite a simple bit. It's literally a bit of flat plate over there, and then it kind of sweeps underneath. That way there's a connection between these two. I was going to have 2 bolts connecting the two of them, but the mount, I made a mount here and a mount here. The lower one I can't actually access while it's on the car, so that was a bit of a fail by me, but it's still held together really well by that top one, which is good. Here it just picks up the 2 bolts on top of the tow bar. I just put a little bit of reinforcing plate over that just to kind of hold it all steady. And then basically I had to run off and go for a full drive trip out to Harvey Dam. I didn't film any of that because it was quite a small crew and I didn't really want to waste time filming because you've already seen Harvey Dam. But I did find a fail point, and that was that without these wings, this part secured, anything that grabs underneath it is going to bend it up. So that's what's happened here. Into a bit of a deep ravine, strong departure angle. Caught on here, and because nothing was reinforcing this corner, bent it back. So I mean, it's steel, I could just bend it back into place, but worth noting that it should probably all be reinforced before I start going forward driving. Anyway, but that's an easy fix. So plan for now is we're going to start finishing off the driver's side, quarter side. Because I've already done most of the prep work with measuring, cutting, all the rest of it, I can just copy this side and reverse it and put it on the other side there. And then we will be looking at sorting out the rear wheel carrier. I've ordered a spindle online from eBay. It comes with your wheel bearings and the other bits and pieces, so once that arrives I can actually set it up and get it in there, and I can show you guys how I go about doing that. And then once all that's all finished, we'll look at getting this top bit all marked out and ready to go. Final stage will be I'm going to get it all professionally powder coated. This is just a quick rattle can job. There's lots of bits missing. Ran out of paint, so it's quite thin, and you can see kind of through the paint in certain sections. So it was really just to do a quick job, and it did the job. It was good. I could find out some fail points up the rear bar, and now I can fix them. So this is where I'm up to on the driver's side wing. I decided to try folding as much as I could out of a single piece of steel, just to kind of save time, and so I didn't have to be welding strange angles and trying to prop things and hold things and whatnot. To fold it, I literally just clamp the piece of metal down to either this table or to my other bench, and then either lean on it or get a big hammer or use some other grips and just try and like grab the steel and fold it nice and uniformly, which usually works. Sometimes it needs some different ideas to get it to work, but usually it does. So luckily I was able to do up this section, and I remember from last time doing this whole corner and trying to get all those measurements and get everything to not only get the right curve but to get the right look on it as well. So it sped up this process. So I think where I was about 3 or 4 days in to do this, it literally took me about 2 hours to get to this point. So from here on in, we've got a cut diagram of all my bits and pieces that I need. I'm just ticking them off as I go to make sure that I'm keeping on top of what I've got. I've measured all this out for the passenger side, so then all I need to do is basically mirror the measurements, flip it over and then stick it onto the piece here. So what I'm probably going to do now is remove the driver's side part of the bumper and cut the flare. As you probably saw out there before, it cuts off horizontal with the top of the bar there, and then we're going to look at how we're going to mount it as well. The exhaust is in the way on the driver's side, so I may have to try something different, because already whenever I'm off-roading and if I'm flexing in a certain way or if something's pushing up on the exhaust, it will rub on the chassis and cause a lovely vibration throughout the car. Something I haven't really gotten around to fixing yet, and it doesn't really bother me too much because it only happens in very few situations. But putting more material between the exhaust and the chassis is not going to be ideal, so I'll have to figure something out for that. Anyway, so I'm going to get started into that. Probably won't show you too much just because it is lots of measuring, cutting, doing all the rest of it, and doing the camera work and everything is a little bit tedious. So I'll probably just check in with you guys once I've made a bit more progress and got something to show for it. Hello again, back with another update. So this is where the bars at the moment a little bit more progress since last I saw it. Just trying to kind of do everything up. It's going a little bit quicker because so this bit I'm doing different where it mounts to the chassis. I've decided I'm going to attach that first so I can locate the rest of the bar. This mounting bit here that comes down and mounts up under the wheel arch, I've got to move that because I got a little bit too happy and mounted it there where it's got to kind of shift to the right by about 30-40 mil. So whoops, but it's metal so we can just cut it and re-weld it, so we'll go with that. So yeah, this slides onto the chassis rail on the tow bar. There's going to be a bolt going through down the top there, don't mind my little Jesus Christ cross. And then it's all going to be reinforced under there. So on top of that, I'm going to have, where's it gone? So there's this bit of steel here. So this is going to be where my spindle mounts. This part here will be against the actual bar, and this part here will be against the door. So I've left 10 mil of gap just to kind of give me some room. The spindle that I've ordered is a 42 mil round stock that goes through the bar, and then it has some 45 square that sits on top. So I'm going to drill this hole out, basically slide the round section through until it meets the square bit in bottoms, then trim and cut as needed, weld it in, get it nice and strong, give it a few gussets for strength. And then on top of that, the spindle will then come up, and then I'll have my arm sitting on that. The arm itself, the cylinder that sits over the bearings and everything, is 70 mil. So I've had to allow room for that, so it's not going to touch anything. So fingers crossed, my pre-planning will work. So I've just drilled a bit of a center hole there. Probably have to get the hole saw out to try and cut a 42 mil hole if I can find a 42 mil hole saw. And then that will be welded essentially up here, and it's going to be like flush with that line there and then kind of protrude out to about there. So fingers crossed that all goes well. Welcome back. A bit of a hiatus between this update and the last one. I was working pretty hard to try and meet a deadline to be able to go out on a four-wheel drive trip with Scotty. Unfortunately I didn't meet it because my middle section ended up with a bit more kind of damage to it than I had thought from my Harvey trip. Essentially, one end wasn't secure and it got picked up and like bent and twisted by going through a steep gully. Thought I could fix it, but the metal was just too far beyond repair and I don't have the materials to kind of straighten it all out. It would be pretty noticeable as well if I did try to repair it, so I decided to just remake it. Anyway, but I've made this middle section just about done now. So I got my holes to go through to the tow bar, added on a top section both for strength and also for mounting my top surface onto. So that's where obviously the panel is going to be on the top so that you can stand on it and do whatever. That's going to continue down for most of that side, both for strength and also for supporting the top surface. That's just about ready to go. I'm going to finish off that, a few little jobs on that. Bang, bang. Just about finished with this one. I did a lot of little intricate work while you weren't looking. More the kind of stuff where it's like filling in gaps or fixing things up, straightening things, that kind of sort of stuff. But it's just about done. So this whole corner here comes out further. Obviously the passenger side one literally just has this section here, wraps around where the bumper originally was, and then away you go. This one, because it's going to have the spindle on there for the rear wheel carrier, I've extended it out a little bit further, and then it meets up to this kind of almost horizontal section here. So my spindle's going to sit on here. I've tried to make it as low profile as possible so that it's not sitting out so far. But it should be arriving today in the post, which will be very exciting. And then I can put that in, cut it up, weld it, get it secured, and then this bit can be finalized. I haven't been able to finish off a lot of this work because I still want to get to underneath it, where I'm going to need to be reinforcing that spindle, adding in some struts and braces and all the rest of it. So I've had to wait until the spindle rocks up before I start gusseting it all underneath, and I don't want to start paneling all that because then I won't have access. So that's been a bit of a time waster. This bit here has been finalized. This goes back and connects to the chassis behind the rear wheel just through a single bolt hole. It's not really load bearing, it's more to kind of push and pull and twist it so it sits up nice and close next to the panel in a straight line. It needed a little bit of work because it has to kind of, like I said, kind of pull it in and then twist it and pull it in a certain direction for it to sit really nice. I'm sure that there's a way to actually build the whole panel itself so it sits nice and flush, but anyway, we got there in the end. I've extended this section which is in the wheel arch, so pretty happy with that. I did have it sitting out further, but of course I didn't actually test fit it. So when I went to test fit it, it was in the way, so I couldn't actually put it on the car. So I had to cut a little bit of it off, but it's still nice and wide. I'll eventually hang some rubber mud flaps, that's the word, rubber mud flaps from those as well, to further stop mud from flicking up. And then under here is going to be more supported, give it a bit more strength, and also stop stuff from flicking up underneath. So this bit is almost done. So our next step from here is going to be finishing off that middle section, adding those supports in to the horizontals. Then when my spindle rocks up, I can then weld that in, cut it up, get it ready, gusset it, finish off this quarter bit, and then we're going to start looking at painting it. Originally I was going to send it off to a powder coater to get it professionally powder coated, but I've decided that I'd like to learn a new skill instead of paying someone else a few $100s to do something. This here is a Raptor kit. This is a tintable version, so it's going to be tinted in the Toyota factory white. Comes with a bunch of different accessories to do things, all your hardener and paint and everything else. It's a very tough finished surface, so they use it for like spraying truck liner, bed liner, that kind of stuff. Also there's some four-wheel drives running around with this all over the bodywork, and apparently it's pretty tough and durable. So I wanted something tough and durable because it's going to get bumped and scraped and knocked against, just being a rear bar and a four-wheel drive. So the powder coating was like, yeah, I could get it done, but it's going to be expensive, and if I get a scratch in it, I'm going to be really annoyed. So at least with this stuff, it is going to be very, very tough. So here it is all test fitted. Everything fits together nice and kind of bolts, except for this section here. Now as you can see, that G-clamp has to pull that bottom corner in. The top corner kind of does its own thing, so I'm happy with that. But if I release that, it sits out quite a fair way. And also the other problem is these things that I made, the top one snapped off because I didn't reinforce it, but the bottom one doesn't line up 100%. Also I can't access it. The hole through the top is not big enough for my hand. So I'm just trying to figure out alternative ways of doing this. One option is to bolt it together nice and firm and then attach the whole thing to the car, which would need to be done obviously off the car. But the easiest solution is literally drill and bolt straight through this section where that G-clamp is, to squeeze those together. I don't really want to do that just because of aesthetics. Like I kind of don't want it to look like I've got a massive bolt there, but that's looking like the easiest option at the moment. And sometimes Occam's razor tells us that's the way to go. So I'm going to keep trying. This corner as well is a little bit out, but that's not really a problem. I just kind of clamped it to see what it'll look like. But as for the rest of it, pretty mint.
2,000 years later.
And there she is, all fitted up. Took a little bit of maneuvering and playing around to get it to sit on there, but it is now good to know that it can be done. I did manage to start stripping this right hand hole into the tow bar, which is kind of annoying. Sorry, the bolt itself started stripping out because I think I must have hit it at a bit of a weird angle. And also this cutout for the tow bar is starting to annoy me, so I'm probably going to take that off and trim it while it's out. But apart from that, it all sits together really nicely. That still grabs hold, still enough space in there. This one definitely needs a bit more reinforcing, so while it's all apart I'll probably do that, but it's good to know there's actually a light at the end of the tunnel now.